Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 26, and earlier this year, I was fed up with my job and venting to my friend about wanting to start my own business. That's when things got interesting. My friend's mom happened to be the president of our local bank, and she mentioned they were offering great rates on business loans due to the pandemic. After doing some research on alcohol prices in our area, I discovered the liquor stores in the nearest city, about 30 minutes away, were charging ridiculous amounts. $15 for a six-pack of local beer. That's when I knew I had a solid business opportunity. I secured a loan with an excellent interest rate and bought an old bank building. My dad, being a contractor, helped me renovate it at a great price. By May, after getting all the necessary licenses and paperwork sorted, I was ready to open. The local distributors told me something interesting. The city liquor stores had an 80% markup on their products. Another business owner suggested I keep mine around 35–40%. This meant I could offer much better prices and still make a good profit. Being near a national forest, we get tons of tourists year-round. My first week, right before Memorial Weekend, I made $4,000 in profit. Life was good. My girlfriend and I were working long hours, but being my own boss was worth it. If someone was rude, I could tell them to shop elsewhere. When some racist told my girlfriend to go back to China, I simply charged them 15% more at the register. Then came the twist. An older man walked into my store and offered to buy it for a laughably low amount. It wouldn't even cover my loan. When I refused, he delivered an ominous warning that I'd be sorry for rejecting his offer. A month later, I was served with a lawsuit for slander. After some digging, I discovered the man who tried to buy my store owned both liquor stores in the nearby city and sat on the city council. Even better, he headed the board that approves liquor licenses. In my panic, I called my uncle, who's a lawyer, explaining how this guy was trying to destroy my business. My uncle told me to hold on while he made a call. 5 minutes later, he called back with good news. He and his partner would take my case for free and wanted me to come to his office the next day at 1 o'clock. The guy was suing my business over newspaper ads, claiming they damaged his reputation. The case was dismissed, but that was just the beginning. He sued me personally 4 more times over 3 months, each case getting thrown out. Before the 5th hearing, we had a settlement meeting. The judge was trying to end this cycle of lawsuits. The guy's lawyer handed over their offer. They'd stop suing if I sold my store for 30% of my remaining loan. I countered by telling them I wouldn't sue for harassment if they dropped the case. That's when the guy lost it, mocking me about not having money for legal fees and saying I should be grateful he was offering to buy my stinking place before the bank foreclosed. My uncle calmly told him that he'd been representing me pro bono the whole time, and I'd only spent money on gas. He added that the guy's outburst had just guaranteed our lawsuit against him. The judge and even the guy's lawyer looked shocked. The case was dropped immediately. Now my uncle and I are preparing to sue him. We're aiming for a significant amount to draw attention to his corruption, but we're being careful not to appear vindictive. I'll have to pay for this lawsuit, but after getting free legal defense 5 times, I'm not complaining. My business is doing really well. His attempts to run me into the ground only made me more determined to succeed. Last I heard, he's losing customers to my store, and there's talk about investigating his position on the licensing board. Sometimes, the little guy does win. I'm an assistant teacher at a martial arts school. I've been working nonprofit as a teacher and got my certification 5 years ago. I've seen all sorts of people come through our doors, but I've never had an encounter quite like the one I had with an insane Karen last year. Our summers are always busy. We get lots of students of all ages training to compete at a national level. While we deal with our fair share of parents dropping off difficult kids, the worst type to teach is someone who thinks they already know everything. This one Karen had only been attending classes for about a week, but she was already completely unhinged. She refused to take any instruction, ignored other students, complained that we were going too hard. We were doing basic moves that toddlers could handle, kept bringing up religion randomly, and was just plain disrespectful to everyone. I'll never forget her excuses for not taking instruction. When I tried to show her how to adjust her stance, she just scoffed and told me that since I was smaller than her, maybe I needed to know this stuff, but she was stronger than that. Another time when I attempted to correct her form, she had the nerve to tell me that since she was older, I should be the one listening to her. And my personal favorite was when she declared that only the church could tell her what to do. Now, Karen wasn't a small woman. She was easily 6 feet and over 200 pounds. She used every bit of that size to rough up her fellow students. She'd go for face shots, throw illegal punches below the belt, and just throw her weight around on people much smaller than her. I finally witnessed this firsthand when she shoulder-checked a teenage girl without waiting for the starting signal. The poor girl had the wind knocked out of her, was crying, and trying not to throw up. I confronted her about not waiting for the signal and choosing a partner outside her age group. She tried to defend herself by claiming she thought we were supposed to fight like we meant it. I explained that, while that was true, she still needed to treat her partner like a partner, not an enemy. She just dismissed me, calling me little boy and saying I wasn't the boss of her. Mind you, I'm 22 and was wearing my full uniform with my black belt and an instructor patch clearly visible on my shirt. I warned her that if she wanted to continue training with us, she needed to respect the limitations and restrictions we'd placed to protect her and our students. Her response was just as entitled as ever. She claimed it wasn't her fault she was better than everyone else, suggesting God had chosen her to be the best. That's when I challenged her to spar with me, telling her to show me what she could do with no holds barred. She rolled her eyes and got into position. Before I could even signal the start, she charged at me like a bull. I easily dodged, giving her a warning tap that barely grazed her. She absolutely exploded. Started screaming profanities and slurs, tried grabbing my hair, spat at me, and threw wild punches everywhere. If she'd paid attention in class, she might have actually landed one. I started hitting back, going easy at first, but she wouldn't calm down. For context, I'm 5'6" and maybe 140 pounds on a good day. I wasn't doing much damage, but she screamed like I was trying to kill her. She started clawing at my face with her fingernails like some kind of feral cat. I gave her one good shot to the stomach, but when she managed to grab me, she went straight for my throat. That's when I'd had enough. I sidestepped and delivered a spinning heel kick right above her jaw. She dropped like a sack of potatoes. When she came to, she tried attacking me again. Thankfully, 3 of our bigger students stepped in and restrained the raging hippo. She was permanently banned from the school that day. Later, she tried suing us, but the judge literally laughed her case out of court. Since she'd signed our liability waiver, she had no grounds to sue. Instead, she ended up paying us $4,000 in damages and got slapped with 60 hours of community service. She also had to attend mandatory anger management classes for 6 months, and the judge ordered her to stay at least 500 feet away from our school and any of its students or staff. That spinning heel kick knockout was the most satisfying lesson I've ever taught. I heard that she tried joining another martial arts school in the next town over, but they'd already heard about her and turned her away at the door. Screw you, Karen. I hope you enjoyed the hospital bill and your anger management graduation ceremony. After graduating from college, I got my first job at a small agency. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to start thinking about moving out of my parents' place. That's when my boyfriend suggested we could share an apartment with his childhood friend to make it more affordable. The arrangement seemed perfect at first. My boyfriend's friend was a software developer who worked mostly from home, and he was incredibly considerate as a roommate. We found this spacious 3-bedroom apartment in a nice area, split the rent 3 ways, and everything was going smoothly for the first few months. Then his new girlfriend entered the picture. I still remember the day she first came over. She walked in like she owned the place, barely acknowledging my presence with a curt nod. Within 2 weeks, she had practically moved in without any discussion. She lived across town but apparently didn't like her own place, so she decided ours was better. When I confronted her about my toiletries running low suspiciously quickly, she casually admitted to using them, claiming all her stuff was at her place and it was too much hassle to bring everything over. When I told her these were my personal items and asked her to either ask first or bring her own, she dismissed my concerns entirely. She had the nerve to tell me not to be so uptight about it, saying we were all living together now anyway. Except we weren't. She wasn't paying rent or utilities, yet she acted like she was the queen of the apartment. She would raid our fridge without asking, use our washing machine with our detergent, and blast music at 3 a.m. She and her boyfriend would have these explosive arguments that would shake the whole apartment. One time I spent $30 on fresh pineapple and other ingredients for a special dessert I was planning to make for my boyfriend's birthday. I came home to find more than half of it gone without so much as a note or apology. My boyfriend and I were reaching our breaking point. We were planning to have a serious talk with his friend about the situation when karma decided to step in. That morning started like any other. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I found this ancient container of cocoa powder in the back of the cupboard. When I opened it, my stomach turned. It was full of cockroach larvae. I was about to throw it out when she walked in looking hungover and entitled as usual. She immediately spotted the cocoa and exclaimed in delight about finding it. Without asking, she went straight to the fridge and grabbed my expensive oat milk. I watched in fascination as she scooped the infested cocoa into her mug. The larvae were clearly visible, but she was so self-absorbed, she didn't even look at what she was doing. I stood there silently as she dumped my oat milk in, stirred the mixture, and took a big gulp. I've never had to fight so hard to keep a straight face. I grabbed my coffee and left for work, knowing this would be a day to remember. The aftermath was even better than I could have imagined. That evening she started feeling sick. Her boyfriend took her to the emergency room where the doctor confirmed she had ingested insect larvae. She was prescribed some medication and told to be more careful about checking food before consuming it. She was so embarrassed about the incident that she stopped coming over as frequently. A month later, she and her boyfriend announced they were moving across the country for her dream job. I later found out through mutual friends that she had actually been fired from her local job for stealing office supplies, and the move was more of a necessity than a choice. I still have the empty cocoa container as a reminder that sometimes karma comes in unexpected packages. I've lived next door to Karen for about 3 years now. She moved in right after her divorce, and at first she seemed pretty normal. That was until she developed a mild case of psoriasis 6 months ago. Now, I work as a nurse at our local hospital, so I know a thing or two about medical conditions. Psoriasis isn't contagious. It's just an autoimmune condition that causes some red, scaly patches on the skin. But try telling that to Karen. It started with small things. She'd wear full coverage clothing and gloves, even during our scorching summer days. Then she began crossing the street whenever anyone walked towards her, shouting warnings at people to stay back, claiming she was protecting them. One day, I was watering my garden when she came storming out of her house in what looked like a makeshift hazmat suit made from garbage bags and clear plastic sheets. She immediately started yelling at me, demanding that I go inside because she was heading to the grocery store and insisted the whole street needed to be cleared. When I tried to reason with her, reminding her that her condition wasn't contagious, she became indignant. She snapped back at me, accusing me of minimizing her condition and declaring that she'd done her research. Then she threatened to call the mayor's office. And she did. She actually called the mayor's office, demanding they implement a town-wide quarantine protocol whenever she needed to leave her house. The poor receptionist had to listen to her 30-minute rant about public safety and citizens' rights. The mayor's office obviously dismissed her demands, but that only made her more determined. She started a Facebook group called Protect Our Town from Biological Threats and somehow managed to get about 50 members, mostly people who didn't even live in our town. The real drama started last week at Food Mart. I was there doing my weekly shopping when I heard the familiar sound of Karen's voice echoing through the store. She was screaming about a biological emergency and demanding everyone evacuate immediately. The store manager tried to calm her down politely, asking her to lower her voice as she was disturbing other customers. But Karen wouldn't have it. She demanded they close the store while she shopped, insisting her condition required special accommodation. When the manager suggested their delivery service as an alternative, Karen exploded, accusing them of discrimination and threatening to sue the establishment. She then pulled out her phone and started live streaming to her Facebook group, dramatically narrating how they were forcing her to shop alongside healthy people, claiming they were endangering everyone, and demanding justice. That's when I'd had enough. I walked up to her with my phone out, playing a video I'd recorded last weekend of her sunbathing in her backyard, in a bikini, without any protective gear, chatting on the phone about how her miracle cream had cleared up most of her psoriasis. I confronted her about this supposed deadly condition, pointing out how unbothered she seemed by it while tanning. The store went quiet. Karen's face turned redder than her psoriasis patches. She tried to grab my phone, but the store manager had already seen enough. He told her that she needed to leave and not return unless she could shop without disrupting their business. Karen responded by shrieking about conspiracies and threatening them with her lawyer before storming out. But the damage was done. I shared the video in our town's community Facebook group, along with educational resources about psoriasis from reputable medical sources. Her biological threats group quickly disbanded when people realized the truth. The lawyer she consulted for her lawsuit against Food Mart ended up giving her a stern lecture about false claims and the potential consequences of inciting public panic. Last I heard, she's been ordered to take down all her social media posts about being a biological threat after the store's corporate office sent her a cease and desist letter. She still lives next door, but now she shops exclusively through delivery services. Sometimes I see her checking her mailbox wearing just regular clothes, though she still crosses the street when she sees me coming. I guess old habits die hard, even when they're completely exposed as nonsense. I grew up as the housekeeper's daughter at the mansion. I spent most of my childhood alongside the family's only daughter. We were inseparable despite our different backgrounds, or so I thought. My mom worked for her family for over 20 years, and her father always treated us with kindness, even paying for my college education. His daughter and I grew apart after high school. She went abroad while I stayed local, working part-time to help my mom. Everything changed last month when her father passed away. At the will reading, her father's lawyer announced that the entire fortune would go to his second daughter, not by blood, but by heart, looking directly at me. His actual daughter immediately lost it, screaming about how I was just the help's kid. When the lawyer tried explaining their work conditions, she stormed out. That's when my life turned upside down. I lost my job after she bribed my boss with a donation. Articles appeared online claiming I'd embezzled money. My social media was flooded with fake screenshots of racist comments supposedly from me. She even hired people to befriend me and secretly record our conversations. One of them slipped up by admitting they were working for Joe Boss Lady. The final straw came when she tried framing me for theft. She planted family heirlooms in my apartment during a fake wellness check, having hired actors to tell the police I was acting suspicious. What she didn't know was that I'd installed security cameras after all the weird incidents, catching her in the act. The lawyer called an emergency meeting. He revealed this was all a test from her father, who'd anticipated her reaction. In a recorded video, her father explained he'd watched her grow increasingly entitled and cruel over the years. Since she'd failed his final character test, the entire inheritance would instead fund a charitable foundation managed by someone who'd shown true integrity, me. She completely lost it, demanding the money as his real daughter. The lawyer calmly told her that not only was the decision legally binding, but they had evidence of all her recent schemes. He suggested she leave before they pressed charges. Now the foundation helps underprivileged students and working families, while I run it alongside my new job at a better firm. She's living off her dwindling trust fund in a much smaller house, posting angry rants about betrayal and family loyalty. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.